South Jamaica, baby, they made me to be the greatest. Serving the deed of my creators, fresh off of my high haters. It's the king again, Magdalene, chauffeured, bragging and boasting.
Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Dollars. Welcome back to the channel. It's another day, another dollar video, and I'm going to be reacting to America's most evil serial killer, John Wayne Gacy. Now, we all seen the Jeffrey Dahmer show by now. I'm assuming most of us have already. And in that show, they also teased a little bit about John Wayne Gacy. He was from Chicago. He was like a dude that would dress up like a clown. And I'm pretty sure a couple of horror movies was inspired by this dude. But I never really knew too much about him. But apparently, they consider him the most evil serial killer. Now, all serial killers is evil, bro. I think we pretty much understand that. But I wonder what it is about this one that have people calling him the most evil. A couple of things I heard about him. He was like a person in the community that was well known. You know, it's always that type of character, bro. Like somebody that you would never expect, that he's well known in the community as a good guy. Also, I reacted to the BTK killer, serial killer. I forgot what his real name was, but the BTK killer, he was able to evade law enforcement for like 25, 30 years, bro. So that's what's crazy about that situation. But yeah, without further ado, let's check this joint out, man.
In December 1978, Chicago police were just beginning to uncover the evidence of one of the most heinous crimes their city had ever seen, as body after body was pulled out from under the floorboards of a seemingly ordinary suburban home. Investigators realized that they were dealing with America's most evil serial killer, John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, had murdered more people than any one person in U.S. history at that point in time.
Damn.
John Wayne Gacy was a well-known and well-liked figure in his suburban community
See
north
what I
of Chicago.
said?
He owned a successful construction business, attended church faithfully, and was involved in the local Polish community.
One thing I want to put out there, I'm not afraid of clowns. Like, I've never been afraid of clowns. I never had a phobia. I know there's some people that can't stand clowns. And I mean, they could be a little bit freaky. I did a reaction to the movie The Terrifier, and it's about a clown serial killer too. So I'll be uploading that hopefully later this week. I got a lot of videos to edit and upload. I've been lazy. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. It's my fault. But yeah, I ain't never been the type that's been afraid of clowns. If you guys been afraid of clowns, let me know in the comments.
He was married to his second wife and seemed to be a devoted stepfather to her two daughters.
Damn.
Through his position as a precinct captain for the Democratic Party, Gacy had the opportunity to meet
and he had
photograph
political
First Lady
connections,
Rosalind
bro.
Carter in early 1978, the very same year that his horrific crimes would become public. At the time, though, Gacy was loved and admired by his neighbors, friends, and the police, and had been known for hosting elaborate parties for his entire neighborhood. Gacy's alter ego, Pogo the Clown, was often a feature of these parties, and neighbors recall that he seemed to enjoy dressing up in his clown costume and makeup and entertaining local children. But underneath Gacy's idyllic suburban life, he was hiding a dark past. Prior to moving to Chicago, Gacy had been living in Iowa, where he was arrested for assaulting two young men while his first wife was in the hospital giving birth to his child. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but after serving 18 months in jail, a now divorced Gacy was released on parole and received permission from the courts to relocate to Chicago for a fresh start. Soon, though, Gacy's community and the world at large would learn that these secrets paled in comparison to the sadistic double life that Gacy had been leading for years. After telling his second wife that he was bisexual, the two divorced in 1976.
It seems like that's like a common theme with some of these serial killers, bro. They got like weird sex lives, bro.
And Gacy, now free to indulge his most sick and twisted fantasies, soon learned that killing was more satisfying to him than anything else, and he would spend the next several years trying to get his fix in the most horrific ways. It all started to unravel for Gacy with the disappearance of Robert Piest. On December 11, 1976, Robert's mother arrived to pick him up from his shift at the pharmacy where he worked. When his shift ended, Robert told his mother that he was going to talk to a man about a potential construction job that would pay more than double what he was making at the pharmacy. He told her it would only take a few minutes and then they could go home and enjoy his mother's birthday celebration. She waited outside the pharmacy, but Robert never came back. His panicked mother went home and returned to the pharmacy with her husband, other children, and the family's two German shepherds, but they could find no sign of Robert. The worried family then drove immediately to the police station to report their son missing. Lieutenant Kozenczak, whose son attended the same high school as Robert, took their report. One of the first calls he made was to John Wayne Gacy. Gacy's friends and neighbors may have been oblivious to his dark past, but the police were not. Not only were they aware of his past convictions, but they had also received numerous complaints about Gacy in recent years.
I wonder, why did he call him first? Was it because of his political connections or because of the record that he had prior in Illinois that he had for assaulting them two other boys? So maybe it was a record and he like, you know what? He's the first, but I don't think they would just call him. Right? Wouldn't they visit him and like ask him questions or some shit? Like, so I want to know what was the reasoning for him calling. Had to be something.
In 1975, after an employee of Gacy's construction company went missing, the man's family pleaded with police to investigate Gacy, but their pleas were ignored. In 1976, police had run surveillance on Gacy.
Bro, that's always a common theme with all these stupid ass cases, bro. It's always the cops not following up on people raising concerns, bro. Like, there's always opportunities for these police officers to catch these dudes before they really start going on a spree, and they never do, bro. Like, I don't understand that. Like, why wouldn't you take somebody's pleas very serious? Like, I don't think they're gonna just say, oh, this guy, investigate him for no reason, bro. You gotta take that shit serious, bro.
Gacy's home related to the disappearance of a 9-year-old boy, but they were unable to build a case against him. In 1977, a young man complained to the police about Gacy, alleging that Gacy had kidnapped him at gunpoint and assaulted him.
Wow.
Gacy was arrested and even admitted to his encounter with the young man, but he claimed that it was consensual and prosecutors declined to press charges.
Bro, that's already mad different incidences, and he's still gonna be allowed to be free?
Police were also beginning to suspect that Gacy was behind a string of complaints about a man named John, who had been cruising local parks and picking up young men, many of whom seemed to disappear after their encounter with John.
Wow.
Despite these incidents, Gacy had managed to stay one step ahead of the law so far, but his luck was about to run out. After Robert's family made their missing persons report, officers quickly realized that the man he had gone to see about a construction job must have been John Wayne Gacy. His construction company had just recently finished a renovation job at the very pharmacy where Robert had worked. The coincidence was too much to ignore, and this time the police seriously considered Gacy as a suspect in the disappearance of Robert Piest. Little did they know that this particular crime was just the tip of the iceberg, and they were about to uncover one of the most gruesome crime sprees in history. Lieutenant Kozenczak contacted Gacy and asked him to come into the police station for an interview. Gacy was cordial and agreed to come in, telling officers he could be there within half an hour. Hours went by with no sign of Gacy. Officers were beginning to get suspicious when at 3 a.m., Gacy suddenly appeared at the station.
Wow.
His arrival did little to calm their suspicions. Gacy was more than 4 hours late to his interview, and when he arrived, he was covered in mud and grime. The officer that Gacy had come to see wasn't available.
I guess he was trying to make it seem like he was working or busy or some shit. Yeah, he probably was busy, all right, getting rid of some bodies or something. Well, yeah, from what I heard, I believe he was stashing the bodies of his victims in his basement underneath something. So I guess he probably had them bodies laying around down there, and then when he got that call, he figured, you know what, let me start hiding these bodies, and maybe that's why he was covered like that. Who knows?
So he was sent on his way. Later, officers would learn that Gacy's car had been towed from a snowbank near the Des Plaines River at 2 a.m. immediately before he arrived at the police station. Armed with this information, officers served Gacy with a search warrant when he returned the following day for his interview. He reluctantly handed over his keys and was detained at the station while officers searched his home. There, they found a receipt for a roll of film that Robert's family confirmed belonged to him. Police concluded that Robert had been in Gacy's home, but they could find no evidence of a crime, and so Gacy was released.
What you mean, bro? The kid disappeared. You had the fact that his company was renovating the pharmacy. You find something that belongs to the kid in his house. There's multiple complaints. I mean, like, what else do you guys need to hold them, bro? Like,
released and placed under surveillance. The next day,
they still let him go.
Found a ring that they linked to another missing boy, and employees of Gacy's construction company told police about 2 different employees of Gacy's who had mysteriously gone missing in recent months. A few days later, Gacy had the audacity to invite the officers on surveillance duty outside of his home inside for a cup of coffee. Once inside his home, both officers noticed the unmistakable stench of death.
I ain't gonna hold you. He probably wanted to kill them police officers, bro. Like he probably knew he was gonna get caught already. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna take them with me. I'm going out with a bang. What does it matter?
That same day, Gacy's lawyers filed a lawsuit against the police department for harassment. But before long, Gacy would have much bigger legal issues to worry about. While he was under 24-hour surveillance, officers witnessed Gacy selling marijuana to a gas station clerk, and they jumped on the opportunity to arrest him. While Gacy was in custody for drug-related charges, police officers threatened to tear up the floorboards in his home, prompting him to admit to murder. He tells officers that yes, he did kill a man in his home, but claims that it was self-defense. He shows police the exact spot under his garage where he buried the body, and during their search for the body, officers find a trap door leading to a crawl space under Gacy's home. Inside, amid the terrible stench of decay, officers find parts of at least 3 other bodies.
Damn.
Once he realized that the police had found the first bodies, Gacy cracked. In a rambling, hours-long confession in which he referred to himself in the third person, Gacy told police that John or Jack had killed at least 32 young men and that he had buried 27 of the bodies on his property.
Bro, this dude got away with killing 32 men. For how many years? I don't think he had like a long run compared to like Dahmer and the BTK killer, but the fact that he was able to kill 32 guys and they already had suspicions on him, like, that's just crazy.
And he had disposed of the rest, including the body of Robert Piest in the Des Plaines River. In fact, Gacy had been dumping Robert's body in that same river on the night he was towed out of the snowbank before he showed up at the police station covered in mud. Gacy was charged with the murder of Robert Piest, although police had yet to find his body. By January 8, 1979, police had uncovered the remains of 29 bodies, but only 7 had been positively identified. Gacy was charged with the murders of 7 young men as police continued their efforts to identify the rest of the victims. Parents of missing boys from around the world contacted the Chicago police to find out if their sons were among Gacy's victims, and forensic specialists and dentists were called in to help identify the bodies using
I ain't gonna lie, that gotta be like a tough, gut-wrenching feeling to have a missing child for a long time, and then you hear about this, and then you call in, and, you know, I guess at that point you just want the closure, but that's, you know, my heart goes out to these people, bro.
Dental records, which in the time before DNA testing was the most reliable method of identifying victims. In April 1979, a grand jury indicted Gacy on a total of 33 murders, the largest number attributed to one person in U.S. history at the time.
It's funny that number's 33. You know, if anybody that knows about, you know, Masonry, Illuminati type shit, that number is a significant number, 33.
Throughout this, Gacy continued to give interviews to the police and even described his first murder to officers in gruesome detail. He admitted that he had stabbed his victim to death in his bedroom before burying him in the crawl space, and police found a large blood stain on the underside of the bedroom carpet that matched his story. Investigators also found a red light and a police radio in Gacy's car, prompting them to conclude that he had posed as a police officer in order to kidnap his victims. As the trial date loomed, police had still...
I ain't gonna hold you. That gotta be one of the most scary things, man. To get pulled over and it's not a real police officer. You know, that happens more often than y'all think, bro. I even know over here in Manhattan, there was people that were like rob drug dealers, big time drug dealers, and it was like a robbery crew, but they pretended to be police, and that's just like, you know, you never know, man. Life is so wild, bro. You never know what could happen. People's mindset doing crazy things like this, bro.
Not found Robert Piest's body, but they had found his jacket under the floor of Gacy's laundry room. In January 1979, during the height of the investigation into the killer clown, the Chicago Metropolitan Clown Guild held a press conference, stating that the Gacy investigation was negatively impacting the city's professional clowns. Parents were too afraid to have their children near a clown after the details of Gacy's crimes and his alter ego Pogo the Clown were made public. Gacy's friends and neighbors recalled that he frequently joked about how clowns can get away with murder, though at the time they thought he was referring to his tendency to grope women while in costume. Gacy's trial began on February 6, 1980. Due to the graphic nature of the crimes and the evidence, the judge banned anyone under the age of 16 from the courtroom. Gacy, who was facing the death penalty, pled not guilty to the charges, and his lawyers attempted to launch a defense based on insanity. But after a 5-week trial,
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm always wondering about is like, how can these lawyers, I know they're supposed to be professional And you know the man is guilty though. Like, how can you stomach representing somebody that's well, not convicted, but accused of doing such horrific things and is pure evil, bro? Like, I don't know. Also, I want to know, was he dressed up as a clown in some of these murders? Because that would be even crazier, bro. You getting murdered by a sadistic psycho dressed up in clown makeup, bro.
It took the jury just 2 hours to find John Wayne Gacy
Boy was the real life Joker,
murder
huh?
of 33 young men. State Attorney Bernard Carey was quoted as saying he certainly qualifies for the death penalty. If he doesn't, who does? Gacy was sentenced to death by lethal injection and sent to Menard Correctional Center to await his execution. Gacy would spend the next several years on death row while his automatic appeals were exhausted. During his time on death row, Gacy took up art, painting numerous creepy pictures, of course, of clowns. Several of Gacy's paintings were auctioned off along with other inmates' art to raise money to buy art supplies for prisoners.
Wow, people actually brought them shits, bro. And I'm not surprised because, yo, bro, you see people, even with the Jeffrey Dahmer show, like, you see how these people can become idolized. You have weirdos that look up to these guys and, you know, they're fans of these serial killers. It's like, what be going through people's minds, bro? We live in a sick, sick world, bro.
Years later, after Gacy's death, 2 local businessmen purchased 30 of these paintings and invited the families of his victims to destroy them in a public bonfire.
That was
After
good.
nearly 15 years on death row, all of Gacy's appeals were exhausted, and his execution date was set for May 10, 1994. Gacy's last meal consisted of fried shrimp, a pound of fresh strawberries, and a bucket of KFC chicken with fries.
Okay, so I guess when it's, you know, you're about to get the death penalty, they actually give you a last meal of your choosing. Is it like anything, or it has to be within a certain parameter? You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be trying to get like a filet mignon or something, you know, your last meal? Shit.
Prior to his murder spree and subsequent incarceration, Gacy had actually managed 3 KFC restaurants owned by his former father-in-law. As he was strapped into the gurney awaiting his execution, Gacy was asked if he had any last words. He snarled at his executioners, "Kiss my ass." And at 12:58 a.m., he was executed by lethal injection. At the time of Gacy's execution, only 26 of his 33 victims had been positively identified. The advent of DNA testing helped police identify more of Gacy's unknown victims, including the 2011.
I know it's sad that they didn't get to identify all the bodies, but they got 26 out of 33. I mean, that's still good. They got a majority of the people.
Identification of William George Bundy, a Chicago man who told his family he was going to a party and was never seen again. To this day, 6 victims of the killer clown remain unidentified. As a direct result of Gacy's unthinkable crimes, Chicago police spearheaded the creation of a computerized database of missing and murdered children and youths to make it easier for various police departments across the country to communicate and share information in the hopes that similar crimes could be avoided in the future. John Wayne Gacy brutally murdered 33 young men and buried their bodies under the floorboards of his home. He had appeared to be a successful businessman and a pillar of his community, but neighbors would soon learn that appearances can be deceiving. Hiding behind the facade was America's most evil serial killer, John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown.
All right, well, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. The one thing that I take from all these serial killer stories, bro, is like you see how the police departments, they learn and adapt and they start building databases and, you know, it creates better methods for the police to work together with other police departments and just to catch dudes like this, man. Yeah, man, like if they do another show the same way they did the Dahmer with this, I would be interested in watching it. You know what I'm saying? And there's other serial killers out there, bro, that I would say is worse than him. They say he was the worst in America, but I mean, he did have 33. So I don't know if it's because he had more bodies, but you know, from what I've seen and what I read and what I heard, there's other serial killers out there that was actually worse and got way more bodies than him, but they're not in America. Anyway, yo, that was the video, man. If you guys find this stuff interesting, let me know. I will be doing other, you know, videos on serial killers too. There's another serial killer I'm gonna be checking out. I think his name was Robert Pinkton. He's from Canada. There's actually 2 serial killers in Canada that I want to check out videos about. And then there's a dude that was in like Colombia I forgot what his name was. Like, there's a couple other dudes I want to check videos out about. But yeah, and then there's the UK Dr. Death. I think he had like, I don't want to say 600. Nah, that's too much. Like 200 to 300 bodies, 250 to 300 bodies, bro. Wild. So I'm gonna be checking those out, but it's not gonna all be just serial killers, man. You know, we switch it up on the channel. Anyway, it's your boy Dollars. I'ma holla. I'm out of here.
For my time goes by, they gon' raise a nigga jersey in the sky. Treat a nigga right, big dreaming on my life. Shorty wanna get some air, I go and get her when I fly. Taking off on these niggas I retire. The minute I catch fire, I smoked them all before, just revisiting the high.